Hello, welcome to Framework and our Bioware Omnibus, where we are continuing to go through all of the major role-playing games that the Bioware company has released. Today, we're beginning Mass Effect 2, considered by many to be the zenith of the Bioware efforts. I am Al Schwartz. With me, as always, John Bernard.
Hey, it's me.
Would you say this is the best of them all?
I mean, if you had to put it into such base, limiting terms, yes, Mass Effect 2 is the best one.
Which you do have to.
Yeah, well, it's the best one, yes.
There is, when trying to YouTube alternate scenes for the routes I can't take in my playthroughs, just to kind of see how things play out if you romance Jack or whatever. I did come across there is a movement. There's a cadre of people that say that Mass Effect 2 actually ruined the franchise.
Because I've heard this. Yeah,
yeah, because it's no longer an RPG, which is kind of true, I guess, as it goes. It does the big thing here, the shift in the style of gameplay. Anyway, is less role playing game, more shooter. And it just turns out that Mass Effect 1 was already just kind of a bad shooter superimposed onto an RPG, and now it's a good shooter. And that's a vast improvement, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this particular game, this particular story, the way that you move around this world, always meant to be a shooter more than an RPG, I'm afraid. And I love RPGs; they're fantastic. I grew up on JRPG, Final Fantasies, all those on the Super Nintendo, etc. I still like them, still play them. Playing Baldur's Gate 3 recently, which you're gonna have to do one day, Al. We'll talk about that, years down the line. But
I committed to doing double playthroughs of all these Mass Effect games, which is eating up a ton of time. Even having been through 2 COVID quarantines in the last month.
I know. But one day, man, you're really gonna like that one. But the point is, I'm fine with it being what it's meant to be, and I think it's a shooter. It still has that incredible sort of presentation style that feels very RPG. The conversation trees that you can get on, the ways you influence your party, all that stuff is still definitely got one foot in RPG. And you have, at least as we were talking about, the illusion of control over where all that stuff goes. And that is still quite edifying. You have to play the game multiple times, many times, to really break it and see the ways you don't have control. So it's an effective illusion still.
Well, the big one of the big gripes of this game is the whole conceit of it, which sees Shepard sort of leaving the human military and teaming up with Cerberus, who were a villainous, almost like terrorist cell in the first game. In order to make that happen, one of the gripes goes, they railroad you into this pretty major character 180 for Shepard and rob you of that control.
Right. Well, I don't know how to do that without taking the reins a little bit. This is the narrative that they want to tell here. I mean, it is a story that is written. This is a conceived story. You do not have complete control over it. That's true of most RPGs too, man. It's only recently that you're kind of able to, chart your own path at all in such games. Every RPG has a plot that you are stuck with. You can't just decide, you know what, I'm not going to go fight the bad guy here. I'm not going to go to that tower that I'm supposed to do. It locks progression. You need to go fight the bad guy in the tower, or you can't go to the next world and meet the new characters. So, that's all RPGs. I mean,
yeah. I like that. I mean, there's a gradient as we discussed between a fully scripted Final Fantasy game and a more fully sandbox open world game, a la, I guess, the Elder Scrolls, perhaps, or like that. But for my tastes, I prefer a script. I don't, because I want to play a story, not a sandbox. But that's to my tastes, And so this story is a little more on rails even than the first one. But there's still plenty of points at which you can exercise control and do different things enough to keep me satisfied in that regard. And, maybe like the third game is where we get into this most fully, but I also think there should be some room made for the possibility that there is a thematic, artistic point being presented here by, for all that this game wants to present Shepard as sort of a, master of the universe, Mary Sue thing that can control the outcomes, the fate of galaxies. There are certain limits. You can't control every aspect of every single thing. And yeah, maybe Shepard as one person, there's no choices they can make that prevent X, Y, or Z from happening.
Well, yeah, it's not a God simulator.
Right.
It's a narrative. It's you working your way through a narrative, and it feels, very personal in its way, but it is a story at the end of the day. And it just happens to be a very good one. Well, that's the thing. Mass Effect 2, for being one of the, like, as I was saying, the best BioWare game, the story is meh. It's negligible. That's the crazy thing about this. The thing that is weirdest of all, maybe, is that the story of Mass Effect 2 is the least interesting Mass Effect story by far.
Yes.
It feels like treading water a lot of the times, and you're just like, well, why are these things important? The collectors? I mean, can we get back to the Reapers? That seemed like a really big deal. And it's there. There's Reaper stuff involved, clearly, but, it's it does feel like the middle chapter where we're not quite ready to do the big stuff yet.
Yeah, but the middle chapter is traditionally also where there's like a sense of escalation, and things are getting more dire. And this, you're right. The issue with the collectors as a threat is that they feel less pressing and less apocalyptic than Sovereign did in the first game. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it's a de-escalation of the urgency of the overarching story. So that's a little odd. I mean, we kind of alluded to this talking about the first game, but the strange thing about the Mass Effect 2 from a story perspective is that the writing gets leaps and bounds better and also a lot worse. It sort of flips the strengths of things, because the writing for the individual character, like the dialogue scenes, the cutscene writing, is far improved over the first one. And those conversations are better.
Gaming. Yeah. It's incredible stuff.
And the side quests, it's even calling them side quests feels like diminutive in some way, in some cases, because they're so essential to the experience. But the side quests have major story content with cutscenes that are scripted, and every side mission is extremely well written. It feels like. Mm-hmm. But the overarching plot about the collectors and the elusive man is not so much. And in Mass Effect 1, it was the exact opposite. The overarching plot with Saren and the Reapers was really compelling, well-conceived stuff. And then the side missions were kind of hastily sketched things that, oftentimes would not even get a resolution through dialogue or cutscene. You just get a text box pop up. There are no text box. Well, you can read data pads or whatever sometimes, but you're not getting text box resolutions.
Well, I mean, what you've got with this game is the bulk of it is collecting a team. I mean, the structure of the game is you're collecting a large team for a big final mission, and each team member has a mission where you collect them, and then once you've got them, another mission to gain their loyalty, of course. And so it's about probably about 20 or so odd missions individually spread across the galaxy here, and in each of them, it sort of reinforces the larger story that you're going on to, not just with the collectors, but with the Reapers. It's all hinted at there. It's major aspects of what I associate with this franchise getting explored. The Genophage, the Geth, and their sort of rebellion against their masters, all that stuff. It's all playing out, and all the stuff that has come to define Mass Effect, the experience for me, beyond just that first Reaper encounter. And all of that is on point and perfect and amazing. And if the main narrative isn't as good, well, the thing about that is the combat has increased so much as well that's now fun to play, and it's not a problem. It's still engaging, and it builds to a fever pitch in the final act of this game with one of the all-time best missions in video games.
Sure. We're getting far ahead of ourselves.
Of course. The overview, bird's eye view. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other view is that it sort of shifts both from an RPG to a shooter, but also the tone of the story. It goes from space opera to something more, not quite a noir, but like I said, more of a Dirty Dozen scenario. It's a man on a mission. It's more like crime fiction infused than, like I said, space opera this time around. And I happen to think it actually creates that new tone and environment quite well. But yeah, I do understand where the detractors are coming from. I just cannot agree with them that Mass Effect 1 was what Mass Effect 1 had was so perfect that it's a travesty. It was lost.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. It's I have trouble with aspects of the first game. I do, but this one, I kind of don't mind anything they're doing because it's always fun to play too, and that's a big deal to me.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I have now played through this Mass Effect 2. This must be my third and fourth time that I'm running right now.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to try out different things this time. So I tried being an adept for a little while in this game. What I found, though, I've reverted back to my 2 playthroughs being as a soldier and an infiltrator. Infiltrator is the sniper person with a couple of tech powers.
My fave.
Which is exactly what I did 10 years ago, 12 years ago with my Renegade and my Paragon playthroughs. And I just find that, at least on the Insanity highest difficulty level that I cannot bring myself to turn down, the more power magic-based classes or the close combat Vanguard class just don't seem viable. There's in order to use the biotic abilities, you have to have taken down all the other forms of protection enemies have. They can have 3 different forms before you get to just their health bar. And until you get them down to their health bar, the biotic abilities don't do anything. And by the time you get them down to that...
They're shield breaker biotics, aren't there? Warp, isn't that one?
It says that warp is effective against armor, and then it says the concussive shot ability is really effective against barriers. I don't see any evidence of that when I use them.
Well, you're playing on Insanity. I mean, those are bullet sponges, I'm sure.
Right. So on Insanity, at least, in order to get the most out of those powers, you have to take them down to just their health bar. And by the time you've done that, you've done all the hard work. Mm-hmm. And you're just clowning on them at that point, because once they're down the health bar, you can take them down with a couple of shots, whereas it took 20 shots to get them down to that point. On top of that, the Vanguard class is popular among some people, I gather, but it requires you charging in and getting right up close with a shotgun, and I die within 2 seconds of being up close to a single, run-of-the-mill enemy in this game at all times.
Yeah, the Vanguard is sadly not made for the higher difficulties, it would seem. If you play that on normal, you are just a god force, just zipping around with a shotgun, killing everybody in record time. It's fun, but it's not challenging.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I find that with the soldier or the sniper rifle classes, it's both usually pretty fun and pretty challenging.
Yeah, it's the perfect class, and this is Infiltrator, I think. I've decided after several plays. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and every class has this particular class-centric ability, and for the soldier, you get bullet time for a few seconds. So you can slow down time, which is great fun for doing sniper rifle headshots. And with the Infiltrator, it's turning invisible for a few seconds, which is
pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Very, very cool and very useful.
Yeah.
Once you get the hang of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I got through the last one for sure. When I play on not Insanity, whatever the difficulty under Insanity is.
I think that's hardcore.
Yeah, that one I've done, but I'm not going above it. I've decided.
No. What's the other? So the other big change, I guess, is they have basically dumped the system from the first game of weapons not needing ammo, but just overheating if you fire them too fast or too long. And now we have ammo.
They even came up with a convoluted lore reason for it.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
It's fine. I mean, it's essentially that you overheat and then you eject a heat sink that's in the gun and have to install a new one. But functionally, it's a clip. And it doesn't even make that much sense because there's no the heatsink never cools down. If I honestly wish that was how it worked, that maybe over time, my ammo would tick back up if I wasn't in a firefight as things cooled down, because on Insanity, ammo can be, I run out quite a bit. It's few and far between. But it's fine.
I found it better, honestly. I feel
it's an improvement.
And I like the unique quality of having the heatsink based combat in the first one. At the end of the day, it ended up I just had to stop shooting a lot of the time, and I don't have to do that in 2 or 3 because they just fuck it, you got bullets again.
Yeah, that's the thing with the heat sink or the overheating system in the first game. It was a cool idea from a lore perspective and as this is something different.
Mm-hmm.
In practice, it turned out that it just meant that there were a lot of times in combat when you had to just duck behind something and sit there and do nothing for a while.
Yeah.
And that combat Mass Effect 2 is much more mobile to its benefit. That enemies are a little better about trying to flank you and getting around you, so you have to move from cover to cover. And there's more cover, and you don't have to. There's no benefit to. I mean, if you're a sniper, there's a benefit to keeping your distance. If you in the circumstances where that's a possibility, but there's no I just have to sit here and wait for things to recharge.
Right, and the other weapons are viable too when you're infiltrator. Like pistol, you get very good at. It's just sort of like a backup piece if they do get close. Stuff like it becomes quite intuitive, quite fast. I really, really enjoy the combat in this game, and the way they've designed the maps and the way they'll create unique challenges. At the end of a board, like the prison I'm thinking of, where you got to take down the shield generator, stuff like that. They come up with new stuff pretty much throughout the game for you to do with the combat, and I don't know. I don't think it can be overstated how much more fun this is to fight in than the first game. It's and I think going in the opposite direction, RPG way of doing Mass Effect would not have been beneficial for the combat. I mean, I don't know. Can you do RPG but also have this combat system, which is pure cover shooter? I suppose there's ways you could do more, but at the end of the day, it's an action game, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's to its benefit.
Yeah,
it embraces that aspect of it at the expense of the RPGness, which in this case is fine because, another reason why I think I didn't find the Adept to be particularly viable is because, like you're saying, it gets to be very intuitive, but part of that is that on an Xbox controller, which this was designed to make, you can only map 3 powers basically to 3 different buttons to
that's
use
a little
on the
annoying,
fly,
yes,
to use on the fly. And so I found when I first queued up an Adept or a Sentinel even that combines the different types of powers, it's like, I have all the powers, this is great. In practice, I realized after a couple of levels, I'm only ever going to use 3 powers because while you can pause combat at any time and use one manually, that's not very fun. I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing that, and minimizing that actually helps things.
Yeah, there's some times when it's fun to pull up your radials, and send some and operate your squad's powers and things like that. You can coordinate those in a cool way if you're up against a difficult boss. One of those big geth pod things. What do they call those? The
Praetorians,
the Sentinels, or
the Scions.
Any of them, really, the Praetorians for sure. Yeah. But yeah, if you can hit them with I hit you with the warp, and then that'll bring down the shields, and then I can come up behind you with the fire ammo or whatever, and I do enjoy getting into in the more difficult combats, which you get when you have the difficulty plucked up. So I'm for that. I enjoy that aspect of it. I like those things, but yes, you kind of end up with 3 go-tos that are mapped that you never have to radial to use. So
yeah. So that was part of my decision to abandon that and go back to Infiltrator. So I'm like, less powers is not a problem here. There's a way it's actually a benefit. I don't feel like I'm wasting things.
I did Adept once, and I enjoyed it, if I recall. It's not the best, Infiltrator's the way to go again. But I don't know. I like it more than the Engineer version. That one I never really could get into. Is that just called Engineer, right? Yeah, I never liked that one.
There's Engineer and there's Sentinel. Mm-hmm. And the problem with that, why I've never messed with them, is that their class powers are... The Sentinel, their class power is like a super personal shield, which is just the least interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably very useful, but it's not dynamic. It doesn't make the combat funner. And the Engineer's special ability is to create a combat drone that floats around and distracts the enemies.
The worst.
And that is very useful when Tally's doing it for me. But again, that's not... It's so passive.
It's not fun.
It's not the one I want to be manually controlling hour in, hour out, fight each and every fight. That's why I've really messed with those. And Charge, to Vanguard's credit, seems a lot more like a lot more fun.
Yeah, it is.
I don't just not made for insanity. Yeah.
So yeah, and I don't know what else. The inventory is also completely revamped, all to the better.
Oh yeah. Well, there is no inventory.
Exactly. Yeah. There's some choice of gun, some.
Yes.
But you're not dealing with bullshit the whole way through the game, which is really nice.
No, and honestly, the economy is somewhat limited in this game, but I think it actually balanced very well, or at least much to my liking. That there are, they said, you can have 5 or 6 different types of weapon that even if Shepard's not using them all, somebody on your squad will be using them. So there's still a benefit to getting a better sniper rifle, even if you're not a sniper class. And there's armor stuff, and you can get, increased shields, increased health, increased biotic powers, increased tech powers. But all of them are pretty much straight upgrades. So you don't have to like sit there and pore over the minutia and deciding like, well, this one's got a higher rate of fire, but its damage output is lower, and this one overheats faster. So how did that all balance out? It's pretty linear that when you get a new gun, it's better. And there's also just straight up upgrades that just like, I got a submachine gun upgrade. So once I pay for that research, it will improve all of my submachine guns in perpetuity. And
that's
those, those are spread out enough that you pick them up at a fairly steady clip that you're never going a whole mission without finding some sort of upgrade, but it feels somewhat significant. I get that little ping of dopamine of, my sniper rifle's better now. That's so important to me. And I'm getting better without the Mass Effect 1 thing of then having to spend 15 minutes between missions scrolling through, deciding what's junk, which is, especially in Mass Effect 1, 90% of everything is junk. There's not really junk here. And that's, for people that prefer an RPG with a heavy inventory management system and to be able to really min-max everything that they want, they don't like that. But for me, it gives me what I want from an RPG, which is a sense of progression and getting more powerful steadily, without the, becoming a bookkeeper aspect of it.
And the power increase is palpable. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. As you play the game, you feel better and better the more you play. You get better at the combat as you get more powers. You're kind of just like any RPG that I play. I want to be a god being by the third act of the game. I want to be basically unstoppable. And they find a really cool way to give you that, but also create stakes in the third act here, in a pretty good way. So that's kind of like the genius part.
Yeah, but it's about the journey, not the destination, man.
That's true, but they somehow find a way to make the ending impactful and like give you your god abilities, but also like you're losing something here if you don't do the right thing. You can lose your teammates, you can lose everyone on your squad if you fuck up in a variety of ways, and that's good. That's cool because you're not going to lose the fights by the end. Unless you're on insanity difficulty, I suppose.
There's some pretty hard ones. Yeah. But yeah, I'm just saying it's not just about becoming. Yes, I do want to become a god being by the end.
Oh, me too.
But it's got to be the end. Like once I'm there, it's not going to hold my interest as much. What's more important, I think, to the way my brain works at least, is the sense of progression. That as I'm dumping more and more hours into this, each hour, I feel like I have gotten something tangible that has improved my abilities, my whatever. And I think Mass Effect 2 does that's a big part of RPGs, the leveling up factor. And Mass Effect 2 does this really well. The other video game touchstone you and I talk about a lot is XCOM, which I think does that kind of masterfully, that there's so many ways to improve, to upgrade different weapons there, to rank up individual soldiers. And there's a lot of freedom of choice there to like what order you do things in. But the great thing about it is it gives you that sense of control, but it kind of doesn't matter that much what order you do things in, because whatever order you do things in, it feels significant. There's not really any just complete throwaway things that like, oh, well, I got that upgrade that I'm never going to use. At least once you've done XCOM a couple times, you know which ones you're not going to use and just ignore them. But that's what Mass Effect 2 I think does pretty well. It's like Mass Effect 1 might be throwing better shotguns at me all the time, but I'm also never going to use any of them. So what do I care? In Mass Effect 2, it does feel like each and every mission I have improved in some tangible way that I'm happy to have that thing now. And even like the skill trees, they've gone from having 20 points you can put into pistols or 20 points you can put into warp to now there's 4 levels, but each level feels significant.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you want. You want things that impact your play. What I love about the combat in this game is the weapons that you get. The shotguns, I guess, are basically all similar in power, but they all feel different. They all have different animation, different rates of fire, different ways they that you would use them. Like, and you kind of find the one that fits you. Like like Geth shotgun, that's the one for me. Which is sort of a plasma based. Longer kind of load up, but bigger blast, takes a little longer to get across the field. Stuff like that. It's like every weapon, there's like 6 of them, and they all act a little differently. And it really is a matter differently. Yeah, and because you're upgrading all your shotguns at once or whatever, you can kind of just focus on the one that just feels right for your play style, which might be the second one you find in the game, or it might be the last one. It's very. I mean, that's what feels RPG-ish about this to me. Is I'm kind of finding stuff that suits my play style best. Which is true of a lot of games can pull that one off. Like find the right weapon for you, but it makes it easier here, and I can kind of just focus on it.
Yeah, I mean, as a shooter, the feel is a much bigger factor. That you don't, in a Final Fantasy game, you get better swords, but they don't feel any different as you go. And Mass Effect 1 had a little bit of that. There were definitely some, guns that overheated faster, and you could tell that was a difference in how you played. Mass Effect 2, like you said, the feel of every gun is so unique and so immediately different that you just you know exactly what the difference is. You feel it intuitively, and it affects how you play. Whereas, every sniper rifle Mass Effect 1 felt like it fired the same way. It didn't play any differently in terms of my experience. Whereas there's a pretty big difference between the sniper rifles that do one shot and have to do a reload, but do a massive amount of damage versus the one that fires 3-shot bursts and you can do 5 shots between reloads. And
the scope is a little different in each case. The reticule is different. The distance is a little different. Some are a little closer up. Some are for nearer than before. Yeah, it's great. And I mean, it's especially good with sniper rifles. That's the ones we use, I guess.
Right.
The SMGs, they're basically the same, but not quite.
But one of the benefits of doing the ammo system over the overheat system is that just clip size does a huge difference in how things feel. Whereas, yes, different guns did have different rates of overheating in the first game, but it felt so imprecise there, like inexact what those differences were, that you had to play for quite a while before you really felt, oh yeah, this one does overheat a lot more than the last one I was using. But it was just like a meter that was filling up as opposed to seeing the ammo tick down. I don't know, just totally feels differently. And this way, I don't know, everything feels more intuitive, smoother in this version, I think.
Yeah. Armor works similarly. You get a lot of armor in this game, and you can kind of mix and match and kind of just change it on the fly. I mean, it obviously, I don't know, it's a little less, it feels less impactful, I guess, the armor than other games, but it, as cosmetics go, it's all quite different, and you can play around with it in that way. And that's almost more important to me, honestly. If the armor works, it works. Beyond that, I'm kind of just wanting to do the cosmetic thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do to it. I just kind of ignore a lot of the there's armor upgrades that are like passive things that don't have a cosmetic element. So I'm doing additional meta gel and better biotic damage that's listed as an armor upgrade. But I'm not doing all like the special helmets or special leg greaves or whatever, just because I like the aesthetics of Shepard's N7 armor. It looks the best of all of them. So I'll throw on the Blood Dragon armor occasionally when I feel like it. But
yeah. And but I don't. I mean, I guess one of the biggest problems I have in the game is the will the helmet be on or off in the cutscenes dilemma, which can be a problem with some of the preset armor. It's like, well, I don't want to not see his face, and they give you so many dumb little headpieces and and things that you can wear on your head in this that look all right, in a third person shooter mode. But then when there's a cutscene, you're just like, well, I don't want him to have like a see-through blob on top of his head and the bottom half of his face blocked by some sort of weird mask thing. So like,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I just normally don't wear helmets.
Exactly. Same. Yeah.
I just ignore that. And even some of the other stuff, I just don't like cluttering up the armor. I love the look of the N7 armor as it is. So
it's a great design. Yeah.
I changed the color of the stripe on my arm between every major mission, but that's about it.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'd dig around with the colors for sure.
Yeah. But we're talking about decals on our armor right now.
Yeah.
We should talk about the story and how things are going. So the intro to Mass
fabulous
Effect
intro,
2.
by the way. A fabulous opening to this game.
It's okay. Yeah, so Shepard is. Well, I guess our first intro is actually to Miranda and the Elusive Man in their secret lair, talking about how great Shepard is. Which is just, I mean, one thing that introduces to is just this is now a new generation of Xbox that had come out on, and again, the Legendary Edition has smoothed out some of these differences anyway. But the graphics are just very improved. All the lighting in this is much moodier and generally better. And it just, everything's much more cinematic. They've really taken to, using camera angles and pans and zoom ins to tell the story in cutscenes more cinematically than they did in the first one.
I think that can't be understated, actually, especially in the context of its release, is how great this game looked right away, and what a step forward it was, and how completely cinematic it was in a way that I don't think games really had been up to this point. This felt like an evolutionary step forward when it arrived, just in terms of pure aesthetics. And obviously, it's building on the first game, but it's absolutely next level here. Looks great.
Yeah, just like one really minute example of this is when you're on the Normandy and walking around, talking to your squad mates. In the first game, there was sort of like a little subtle score in the background of the kind of spacey music, but just barely there. And in Mass Effect 2, there's just like room tone. There's just kind of like a hum of engines or mechanical things, and as you pass certain people, you'll overhear conversations sometimes too. But it just sucks you into the atmosphere more. Just being on the Normandy feels different. It feels like if I was running around on the Normandy in the first game, and especially if I had a lot of inventory maintenance to do, I would turn on a podcast for a couple of minutes while I just did busy work on that thing. And being on the Normandy in Mass Effect 2 just feels, even as it's the most passive part of the game, feels more engaging to the point where I'm not going to do that. I'm more present in that space.
Normandy feels a bit more like a hub world in the first game. In the second game, it feels like a ship. Yeah,
it's bigger for sure. I mean, expressly. Yeah. So we just say why it's bigger because in the opening, Shepard is on the Normandy going to fight more Geth as he has been assigned to do, and the Normandy is attacked by the Collector flagship, the big giant rocky ship that promptly blows up the Normandy and kills Shepard. And that is the impetus for then his body is apparently recovered by Cerberus that spends 2 years doing an experimental science procedure to revive him from the dead. I guess I'm calling him. I think canonically we decided it's a she, so maybe I should do that. But she wakes up 2 years later on a science station that is under attack and is very confused as to where she is. And the first mission is sort of fighting your way out of there, meeting a couple of Cerberus agents along your way, that being Jacob Taylor and Miranda Lawson, our first two party companions.
Well, technically, there's one other guy who shows up, like a tutorial guy who gets killed.
Yes, but that's we don't. He's not making it into the movie,
Yeah, right.
So, how do we feel about these two starter peoples?
They're fine. I like the Cerberus aspect of this story quite a bit, and yeah, I think of the two, Miranda's the better of the two. That is sort of the the genetically immaculate, perfect woman designed in a lab thing. What was the who's the actress? It's the one from Dexter.
Yvonne Strahovski.
Yes, her.
Chuck and
Chuck.
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, I mean, she seems like, I don't know. It looks a lot like her. It's more than most other actors in the game, kind of like a direct representation of the actress.
Absolutely.
Which is notable. I was definitely struck by her the first time I played Mass Effect 2. And I was like, I think I'll go with Miranda for my first romance. I've lost interest in her in further playthroughs, but with Liara off the table in this round, it's an early and appealing choice.
Well, knowing about it now, it's like, your Mass Effect 1 romance options are not romance options in Mass Effect 2. With the whole trilogy and hindsight, I can always go back to the Mass Effect 3 if I don't fuck around too much.
It's kind of like, well, I'm going to stay and stray. It's a little kind of gives you reason to explore new romantic options in the game.
You get a pass when you're on a suicide mission.
Exactly.
To save humanity. That's the rule I've told my wife. If she ever does that, she's gonna, fuck around however she wants.
And also I think it's worth noting that having your character die in the first 10 minutes of the game, a very cool sequence, by the way, as the Normandy is exploding, the original Normandy, that is, walking through it, putting on a space helmet so you can go through the bridge, and there's a giant hole in the hole. And you walk through.
See the debris floating away into space. Mm-hmm. It's very,
cinematic.
It's rendered to knock you out, blow you over right out the gate. But it still looks good.
Yeah, still works. But the fact that you are quote unquote dead almost also gives you a bit of a hall pass. But not just in the romantic sense, but in you can kind of recreate the character completely. In this way, I find that it almost feels like, well, I can be a new Shepard now. It's Ripley and Alien Resurrection, just like, well, technically it can be a different character if you want.
It's true.
It's kind of a neat way to rewrite if you want. I mean, I don't know. As I play it multiple times, there feels like there's maybe a little more continuity, but at the time, it was kind of a soft reboot in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is that. I mean, that's sort of the thing with any RPG series. Well, I don't know. There are other RPG series that have attempted to do this, where you keep one main character across multiple games, but they also want it. They need it to be possible for you to pick up the second game without having played the first game or having lost your save or whatever, and start from scratch. And they need to give you an ability to kind of, rewrite the character as you see fit. I think by Mass Effect 3, they've just kind of decided, it doesn't matter if the player wants to do that, they'll just do it and whatever. Yeah. They can deal with it. They can worry about character continuity themselves.
Yes.
But in this, it's partially for that reason and partially just to get us to the point where Shepard is working with Cerberus, which is something that players would be resistant to after the first game. They have to kind of resort to brute force to do that by killing him off and having you revived under their power.
Okay, so Cerberus predates MAGA, right? I mean, it's long before that, but you play it now and you're kind of like, this is Make America Great Again stuff, especially in the first game.
Well, they are a human supremacist organization. The first game is the stated thing. In this, we are quickly introduced to the elusive man who's the boss of Cerberus, and he is, he's not a Trump figure by any means. He's much more competent than that, and also he's not super. He's not overtly racist in any way. He's just
seems very pragmatic.
Humanity, is starting behind all these other races in the galaxy. We got to catch up, and I'm doing everything I can to advance our interests. Without throwing any explicit hate towards anybody else. And maybe he just tones that down for Shepard's sake. But it certainly feels like you're getting a sanitized version of Cerberus for Shepard's sake on the Normandy.
That's very cool. I think that is a really good aspect of this game. And I think one of the main reasons Mass Effect 2 is esteemed as it is the way Cerberus is handled in this is actually quite compelling and really interesting. and you have questions about them, but you also are given what, yes, appears to be the best foot forward version that they are putting on for Shepard. You're kind of waiting the whole game for the other card to drop on it, but there's nothing inherently wrong with them or that as presented here. Not enough to kind of like make you question it. And I think this is actually extremely well handled in the game. They let it down in 3, but for now, I think this is dancing on a knife's edge. Really good stuff.
Yeah, and it's deliberate. There's certainly like it's scripted into the game that people are skeptical of this, but also that, you know, they have loaded this ship with all their most reasonable people. And if it's not explicit that everybody has orders to be super nice to Shepard, everybody's deferential and, you know, impressed with them for, you know, the heroics from the first game, if nothing else. But you know that, yeah, there's that undercurrent of not knowing how much that's played up for your benefit. And so you have sort of Jacob and Miranda as the first two, you know, that you have the most interaction with, and they are sort of the like, you know, good cop, bad cop of Cerberus to a degree. Like Jacob's the nice guy pretty much, and Miranda's a little more hard nosed. Although again, nobody's overtly racist in this game.
They're spacist occasionally against other alien species.
Well, not even that. They're always kind of careful to tone it down. Like I said, I mean, your party members anyway.
Sure.
You know, the people that they're asking you to spend that much time with.
Yeah, there is no Ashley in this one. That's true.
Right.
Unless you let Ashley live, but then she's not on the party. And she's changed her mind.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
That's later.
Do you have any feelings about Jacob whatsoever?
Jacob has an excellent loyalty mission, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. But aside from that, no, not really. Jacob is the boring man that appears at the beginning of every Bioware game to be your companion. He's fine. You know, I think he's actually more interesting than Caden. I'm okay with Jacob. I think he's useful in combat as well, but I'll admit I don't use him much. And when given the chance in later levels to be like, can you use someone to walk people back to the train? You know, I'm always like, Jacob is a good man for that. Exactly. I don't care much about him.
No, I mean, Jacob versus Caden actually is a really good illustration of sort of the differences in the writing strengths that we were talking about in Mass Effect 1 and 2. Jacob is a better written and performed character when you're in dialogue scenes with him.
Yeah.
But Caden's like backstory is more inherently interesting than anything Jacob has going on.
Absolutely.
Which is not much. He was a soldier and he got tired of the red tape, which is something that comes up quite a bit in this.
Yeah.
But like, that's not a very compelling backstory. You know, we'll get to his loyalty mission at some point, but that's sort of the difference. That Mass Effect 1, the concepts are much stronger, but in Mass Effect 2, the execution is much stronger.
Well, yeah, across the boards, there's things you can point in at one that are obvious, like, well, how well was that handled? You know, that was cool. And there are things like, you know, Jacob in 2 that aren't as good necessarily, but you know, the totality of it all, like even the collectors are handled so well that I become interested in them and by the end. And Cerberus, always interesting. Elusive Man, always interesting in 2. It's what the game, I guess, ultimately is about, right? I mean, the collector stuff is almost secondary to, like, are you involved with Cerberus? How deep are you in with Cerberus? Is it okay that you're involved with Cerberus? Can I trust the Elusive Man? You know, I again, these are things that get pushed to the next game ultimately for a resolution, but it's all very compelling in this. I'm very into it all, and the different philosophies espoused, because we kind of have this sort of like Cerberus background that they are human exceptionalists in the first game, and you see like straight up MAGA crowds in the first game. You know, they're just like gathering for riots on the Citadel and stuff, and you have to like, you know, go punch them in the face or say yes, I agree, or you know, you get to choose that.
I don't recall that in the first game.
Oh yeah, there's extremists in the Citadel that are Cerberus you can find, and
I missed that somehow.
Yeah,
twice.
It's interesting. Who you with? It really depends. I think Ashley is a real interesting one to bring for that.
Yeah.
That there's an aspect of that in the first game that they are clearly toning down here, but you're never sure how toned down it is. It is the stuff we were already talking about with them. Yeah, but that's the good stuff for me. That's what's exciting about this game.
Do you have in the 2024 version of Mass Effect that's going on TV, do you have anybody that plays Miranda or Jacob? I mean, at the time of release, like you said, they styled Miranda directly on Yvonne Strahovski. That was like a selling point. It's like, this game is starring that girl from Chuck that you drool over. And now, I mean, 15 years later, it's, you need somebody new. As I went over last time, I think we should do all new people anyway, just for the sake of the screen version being its own thing.
It's true. I can live without the original actress for this role. I think it's actually a pretty straightforward kind of, what are the requirements? It's a beautiful, physically competent woman.
Okay. Maybe we didn't explain this. Miranda's deal is that she was genetically engineered to be the perfect woman by her like egomaniacal father. So she is tall, statuesque, beautiful, powerful, biotic, genius level intellect. She's very much, if she were the player character, it would be very much a Mary Sue scenario, but it's that as designed by another character in the universe. And she's got reservations about being this perfectly sculpted object. And I think actually I like the characterization of her because I don't like her very much. For all her perfection, I am kind of put off by her, and it feels like the game is okay with that.
Totally. Yeah, but I find this a very interesting character, and her relationship with her father, as most characters have weird relationships with their fathers in Mass Effect, but this is one of the better ones, I think. I have an idea for how to streamline it for the show. If we're when we get to that, I'll bring that to you. But
do you have a casting suggestion? Is all I was asking for the moment.
I think there's a lot of people who could do this successfully. Is the truth, anybody, any like breaking new Hollywood actress, in their mid 20s to late 30s, that looks this way. You want Alexandra Daddario to play this? Sure, she can do it. Absolutely. There's a lot of people, I think, who could do this.
She has the bust for it, which is a prominent part of the of the character as presented cinematically.
Did you know in the new edition, the anniversary edition that's out there, they have removed most of the gratuitous ass shots of Miranda.
Oh, really?
Were a major part of the original version of Mass Effect 2. They kind of just changed the camera angle on all those, or most of them.
Well, the legendary version I am playing still has a fair few.
There were some where it's like literally just the center of the camera, just focused directly on her ass during a conversation scene.
And, I guess if you want to give as much credit as possible, as you can possibly extend to them, it is an explicit part of the character that she talks about how her looks were sculpted to make her more effective manipulator of people. And so that is a cinematic representation of how her genetically sculpted looks are drawing Shepard's attention away from what she is actually pushing on him.
Very clever writing there, Bioware. Very, very, very wise. Yes. That's
that cake you have sure is delicious. Anyway, my one Miranda casting suggestion is Kylie Bunbury. I don't know if you know who that is.
I'm unfamiliar with her. Who is she? What I know her from, she's been in a few movies, but she played in a one-season show called Pitch, where she played the first female Major League Baseball player. She played like a female pitcher that had been called up to the majors, with Mark Paul Gosselaar as her catcher and the dad from the Wonder Years as her manager. It sounds like a rough show, I got to tell you.
It wasn't bad. It got canceled because nobody watched it, but me apparently. I don't remember why I started watching it, but she's tall, beautiful, athletic,
right,
and has showed me some acting chops there. So I think good one for Miranda.
Okay, I mean that's fine. If she's all those things, I'm sure she could do the role. It's not the most. I don't know. I mean, I think this is a role that gets rewritten on screen. I believe.
Yeah.
I think there's
my version of this on screen. I don't know that Miranda is going to play a hugely central role. I mean, maybe in these opening episodes of the season, but there's not a lot of end game content for Miranda. And Jacob, I don't even have any suggestions. It's like anybody who's a half decent actor.
I don't know if he makes it to the show, to be honest.
Yeah, that is even there. I'm all for including him just because I like having extra bodies around to kill.
Right. Yeah. But, sure. Fine. Anyone can do that. I don't care about Jacob very much.
The elusive man,
guys. Yeah. Oh, elusive man, though, very important.
That's a very important role. He's sort of the central antagonist of this game and 3, I guess. Although,
sort of.
He's so careful not to antagonize you in this game. You never come into direct conflict with him until the final decision, potentially. But even then, there's no fight against him.
No,
it's in the denouement that you kind of either give him what he wants or tell him to kiss off. But he is an important figure in the Mass Effect cosmos.
And widens the scope of the whole thing. Totally. Yeah.
He's voiced by Martin Sheen in the game, which we haven't mentioned. That was, the other big get.
Quite the coup, quite an achievement to get him. Honestly, I think it's an excellent performance, and really makes the character pop, along with his creepy eyes. I
love that.
Yeah,
and his lair just looks great.
The lair looks incredible. He has this Bond villain vibe. He's got this remarkable lair, which is basically just like I don't know, like it looks like a Star Wars. Control center in a way. It's just a black space with a representation of sort of a weird melting planet right in front of him that he just sits in.
You only talk to him via hologram.
Yeah.
You never get to stand in front of him in person. It's always it's a holographic projection that you're in there talking to him, and he's sitting there in his easy chair smoking his cigarettes.
What's up with his name, by the way? Like, it's not elusive, Elusive. It's
elusive as an illusion.
Yeah, which I don't think means anything as a word.
No, it's that he is illusory because he only appears as a hologram.
Right.
I mean, we need to talk about naming stuff. That's good for the adaptation, especially because I think elusive man needs to go as a moniker. I also think collectors is a terrible name that must be jettisoned for the screen. That's part of my pitch for the collectors. Just we never say the word collectors. You can say that it's an Asari word that means collector if you want, but you just got to give them a made up name because
I'm for that.
It sounds dumb and video gamey every time someone talks about the collector base and fighting the collectors because they don't even collecting was not their thing until now. It doesn't sound like when you hear about their backstory, it's like they came through and traded people for stuff.
Yeah.
But they were never, I don't know, the collector as played by Benicio del Toro in the Marvel universe. Anyway, the elusive man is, which I guess we're sticking with that name just because you don't have a better one lined up. Again, Martin Sheen, great vocal performance. Too old to play him now, and for reasons I've talked about, I think better to do somebody else. So this is one of the areas where I think it is important to get a big name actor.
Absolutely.
To hold down this role.
Yeah.
It's not going to be on screen that much, but it's important. So it's not a huge commitment. There's not a ton of prosthetics or anything. A lot of the barriers to getting giant movie stars to play some of these other roles are not here for this guy. So who's your preferred, elder white guy?
I want someone that seems like a Republican senator. Some a sort of or just a senator in general, I suppose. Like I've been thinking about this, and somebody, I don't know, a very American actor. I've decided, like, you could see a Brit or somebody, having appropriate gravitas for this, your Charles Dances or whatever. But I don't know. I want somebody very American in the role, and the
3 names I came up with are all Americans.
Mm-hmm. I mean, John Voight is an obvious one. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe Republican actors. He's a little old, perhaps. But Kelsey Grammer was another one. I was like, maybe Kelsey Grammer.
I think my version of Kelsey Grammer was Bryan Cranston.
Oh, that's quite good, actually.
Yeah,
I really like that.
And I mean, if you could get like Clooney, that'd be great. But
that would be incredible.
The other, in terms of very American, my third choice was Billy Bob Thornton.
That's cool. Yeah, I kind of like
those
that.
Guys.
Mm-hmm.
Those Voight just seems old and frail to me now, the way that Martin Sheen would in the role.
So I can hear that. That's fine, and I think that it's okay if he is a little bit that, but yeah,
He needs to be well preserved because he's a rich, master of the universe type thing.
I like Cranston for it very much, actually. Yeah. I think that's quite good.
I think he's my number one.
Yeah, I think that's actually really cool casting. Yeah, that's great. He's got a voice, he's got the. Yeah. He certainly has gravitas.
He has gravitas. He can probably smoke pretty well on camera if that's what he needs to do.
And he can make the compelling argument that all he's about is making sure that humanity has a place in the universe. He can do that really well. Yeah.
No one is more experienced at making justifications for bad behavior on TV for years at a time than Bryan Cranston. So anyway, we meet with the Elusive Man, getting back to the story here, after we escape the station, which has been sabotaged for reasons that don't matter, don't have any bearing on later story points. And he explains to you the reason why they brought you back. The collector aliens have been coming through this Omega-4 relay, which is such a cool conceit. It's a mass relay. So the conceit is that there's mass relays scattered all around the galaxy, which will transport you faster than light from one section of the galaxy to another. And as you find them, they can be activated, and once it's activated, it'll go to a certain place or places. But there's rules against activating them randomly. The council races are very careful about which ones they activate. And there's this one, the Omega-4 relay, which glows red instead of blue, which is a nice touch. Cool. That is sort of the Bermuda Triangle of the Mass Effect universe. Nothing that's gone through this relay has ever come back. And the only thing that's ever come out of it is the collectors, which send out one ship to go collect something seemingly kind of random and then go back through there. So it's sort of a ghostly, mythological thing, the Omega-4 relay.
Yeah, there's so much cool room for sort of these creepy little conceptual ideas about that's dark space. We don't know what's going on in there. There's so many versions of that in Mass Effect. This is probably the most prominent one, I guess, unless you count the Reapers themselves. This is a great little tall tale of outer space that they make at the center of this one. It's cool. It's more cosmic horror stuff in a way.
Yeah. So the conceit is that these collectors that have been seen for centuries, but just sporadically, and not everybody believes they exist, they started showing up and wiping out human colonies on the fringes of settled space. The colonies are there, but all the people disappear. And the Elusive Man and Cerberus are the only ones who are actively investigating this. For whatever reason, the human military is not interested in humans disappearing by the thousands on the edges of their territory.
It is a frustrating thing a little bit that in the wake of the Reaper attack, the 9/11 that occurred at the end of the first game on the Citadel, that everyone's just like, well, we don't actually have proof that Lord Voldemort's back, for a whole game where we're just sort of waiting in place. So it's nice that actually
there's some Ghostbusters 2ing going on here.
Yeah. That it's nice that the Cerberus at least is just we think this is tied to the Reapers, so we're actively pursuing the thing from the last game, and it is just sort of necessarily frustrating that no one else is, which is built into the conceit of the world and the game. It's fine. So that is another thing that is appealing about Cerberus is that they are following up on the events from the previous game.
Yes, that's one of the things that gets you to work with them, is that they're the only ones interested in the plot from the first game. So it forces you in there. Again, for an adaptation, I think there's ways of massaging this, but it's not terribly convincing how unconcerned human governments actually are by this.
Although, I don't know. I buy it a little more now than I used to.
Yeah. So he wants you to work with Miranda and Jacob to go and investigate a colony that was recently attacked, and try and help him figure out a solution to this problem. So you say, okay, you go down to this colony where everybody's been taken. You happen to run across Tally, your old teammate from the first game, in that mission, but otherwise it's pretty unremarkable. And also her appearance is somewhat unremarkable. She doesn't come with you at this time. You don't talk to her that long even. But you discovered that, yes, it is in fact the collectors that are doing this. And so to stop them, we're going to have to go through the Omega-4 relay and on a suicide mission, basically, because no one's ever come back. And that's when Elusive Man gives you some dossiers and says, here's the people I've picked out to be your dirty dozen. You have to go convince them all to join you on this suicide mission. And we're finally off to the races at that point.
Yep. Here's your structure. Go for it.
Yeah. And there's definitely a right place to start. You have 4 options of who to recruit first, but there's one correct one because you can't do any of your weapon upgrades until you recruit Morden Solus. So for just some gameplay perspective, I'm never not going to go to him first.
Well,
he is on
Yeah, he's on Omega, which is where another one of them is anyway. So you have 2 dossiers for Omega, the obvious place to start.
You start out in that system. Yeah.
Exactly. They want
it's the obvious first place to start. Omega is the other, like the big hub world, I would say, like sort of like the Citadel was in the first game, where you have a lot of some more side quests. There's places to buy things. So you go there to investigate Morden Solus, who is this Solarian scientist that's running a free clinic somewhere in the slums there, and Archangel, who is a vigilante that the gangs that run Omega are all in the process of trying to hunt down.
So what is Omega, though? Well, like Omega is one of the coolest spots in the entire franchise. I think this is
it's Mos Eisley.
Yeah. This is it's sort of a sort of an asteroid that has been converted into a nightclub planet in a way. It's
sort of nowhere from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, that's right.
But this milieu is now it's getting into darker crime stuff than Guardians messes with, really. So it's a bit scuzzier. You're going to get an F-bomb here and there dropped in this milieu the way you won't in Mos Eisley or nowhere.
There's sex workers. There's gangs. It's it's a video game environment, for sure. There's places you've been like this before, but this is one of the coolest ones. It's space bordello, space nightclub. In the what's Arya's club called? The
Afterlife.
Afterlife, yes.
You see, because Shepard has come back from the dead. In this game, and they are going to gather 12 disciples to them to go to fight, to descend into the underworld to fight a satanic evil. It's very, very subtle stuff. But
great.
So the first place you go to is this nightclub run by Arya T'Loak, who's the gang boss that rules Omega, and she is voiced by Carrie-Anne Moss. She's a great vocal performance.
Yeah, a great vocal performance. She is an Asari. She is one of the seductive tentacle women of Mass Effect.
And you like them to see one of them that's not, nice and airy. I mean, I guess Benezia was evil. Was a villain in the first game,
erudite, so yeah,
right. Someone who's less highfalutin. And bad is nice. She's not. You don't come in direct conflict with her. You're not going to fight her in this game, but she gives you information on where to go to find your recruits. Do you have any? I mean, Arya's another kind of character that doesn't appear that much, but is pretty prominent.
Good celebrity casting. Yes, you need. Yeah. I think you get a name for Arya.
Okay. Well, I don't know if Carrie Coon is a name to me, but that's who I was leading towards.
That's pretty good, man. That's very good. She is. I don't know. Is it just that she has the same name, Carrie?
No, it's mainly that I think Carrie Coon's like the greatest actress of her generation, and she's always like first on my casting list of any sort of fan casting stuff.
I mean, no, that makes enormous sense. Really, it does. I mean, she looks like her too. Frankly, I could totally imagine her doing that. Yeah.
And if she put on the prosthetics to be Proxima Midnight in Infinity War, she can do.
I don't think she actually put those on. I think she was a vocal performer.
Maybe not.
But no, I mean
makeup.
Yeah, you get her to come do that, and Arya's not in a whole season. She shows up sporadically for the run of the thing. Probably a couple episodes every here and there, kind of deal. Because she's not important, but she's a significant side character that that you can kind of spend a lot of time with if you play everything in 2 and 3. She's there.
There's a whole DLC for 3 that is a really extended mission pack revolving around her.
And she's a very Star Wars-y character, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, very much so. The sort of character that you see versions of on all their current shows. So there's an element of her, I guess, that is a little bit familiar now. You've seen there's versions of this, and
she's an alien crime boss. Sure, we've seen
Book of Boba Fett. Yeah. All those have a version of Arya, but I don't know. As Carrie Ann Moss plays it, it's a kind of my favorite version of that. I think that this is a very good character, and the only thing I would worry about in adaptation is her getting flattened out because it's kind of a familiar archetype now. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. This is the one I mentioned. I kind of want Carrie Ann Moss still in the role, but if you're saying clean break, I think Carrie Coon is quite a good replacement. Indeed. If she do
it. So you can do a couple of like random side quests for Arya, and mainly she gives you the location to go look for Morden. You find him in his clinic. There's some sort of plague that has been sweeping through the slums that affects certain races but not others, like not humans, not the Vorcha, who are the goblin race of this game.
I mean, we still got the Batarians, but the Vorcha even more so, doubling down. They're bat monsters with shrill shriek voices, and I think they have like 12-year lifespans, so you fangs, definitely don't feel bad for when you kill them indiscriminately.
Yeah, exactly. So you run an errand for him. You distribute the cure he has to go through the vents and cure everybody before he'll come and join you.
I love this,
which he then does. That's it.
Yeah, this Doctors Without Borders shit that Morden Solis is doing here, fantastic. And this is the kind of like world building that is so exciting in this game, where it's kind of like a new sort of genre of story all of a sudden that you're getting sort of this sort of medical crime adventure going on.
Well, Morden's whole thing is that he is an ex Navy SEAL, essentially. That he was special forces, but also a brilliant scientist. He's the most brilliant mind in the galaxy, apparently. But he's also done some wet work for the Solarian government, and so he can handle himself just fine. But he's also this not exactly motor mouthed. You can understand everything he says, but his brain works very fast. He talks in very short clipped sentences that he strings together very fast. Shepard, blah 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 blah.
Well, it's part of the 40-year lifespan of the Solarians. He moves faster. He's just moving faster at all times, thinking faster. Right, a faster paced species. And again, he is a Solarian, which are like the weird little amphibian peoples, so he's got
they're not quite frogs because they're so spindly.
Yeah, there's lizard in there. They're aliens, but they're definitely in the amphibian kind of aliens.
You're not going to romance one of the Solarians.
And more's the pity. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But because Morden is the best character in this game, I would say. Right?
Morden is the best goddamn Bioware character. That's my contention.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Morden is amazing. Morden Solis is my favorite character in Mass Effect. He's my favorite character probably in any Bioware game. He's just the goddamn best. HK from KOTOR is probably the only real competitor he has.
I mean, I like Morgan from Dragon Age a lot. And
Morgan's great. Mm-hmm. Dragon Age has some bangers. Yeah, for sure. Alistair's pretty incredible too, actually. But no, Morden. Because Morden is, first off, hilarious. He is the funniest character in the game. Shares that with HK. But beyond that, he has this incredible Dr. Frankenstein story kind of at his heart. Not Frankenstein, but it is in that mad scientist milieu. He is kind of committed some war crimes for good reasons.
So that's what we'll come to understand is that he was not, the genophage has been around too long for him to have invented it, but he worked on a modification of it when the Krogan were starting to overcome the genophage and starting to reproduce faster again. He re-upped the war crime there.
Yeah.
So that's how they want to position him, as the sort of father of the genophage, even though the timeline makes us, we have to do another little curly cue here.
It feels like it.
But you're right. That sort of guilt drove him away from doing, military government spy work and led to his starting his Doctors Without Borders thing in the slums. And he is also, he's just a great hang. He's very funny. without like being I'm the joke character. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, the unacknowledged guilt, I think, is the crucial part there. Like this character does not kind of take responsibility for the genophage in any way. He's just like, look, I made a logical decision and I stand by it, the whole way through. And then they create scenarios to kind of poke that and pressure that and interrogate that. And you kind of get to watch him deal with all of that over the course of the game. And then that carries into the third game as well. It's exceptional. Yeah. This is the great character writing we're talking about. And then of course, and he sings a fucking Gilbert and Sullivan song, he's the complete package. Yeah.
The most memorable sequence in this whole trilogy somehow. There's a point where he talks about having studied human culture, and particularly Gilbert and Sullivan, and you can stop him to ask about that, and then he will sing you a whole version of Modern Major General that has been adapted to fit Mass Effect lore, and have him sing about being a scientist Solarian instead of a Modern Major General.
This is some next generation data stuff. Like it's fantastic.
But then there will be a reprise of that song in Mass Effect 3. Which is the closest a video game has ever gotten to making me cry.
It's so good. It can't be understated how exceptional Mordin Solus is realized in this game. Yeah. He is, he's a wonderful character. I used him every chance I got. He's not even that effective in combat. I bring him along anyway on the chance he'll say something. This is one of those great Bioware characters that we come back to these things for.
His best ability is one that I already have as an infiltrator, so I don't have a ton of use for him gameplay wise. But yes, you want to hear his chime-ins and his interactions with other, events the most. So you end up bringing him a lot anyway. He's really just like, again, the writing is so good because he is a galactic super genius, literally superhumanly intelligent. And there's very little of the like dumb person's idea of a genius type of writing with him.
Yeah.
He actually does he addresses everything. Like you can talk to him about like, don't you feel guilty about that? And it's unacknowledged guilt because he's like, no, thought through every angle to do this not pleasant, had to do it, blah, blah, blah. He just drops it all down. And the performance is so good. You can tell he's not 100% convinced by that, but he did it anyway, and he has to live with it. And he's got the logic of this lifeline of pure logic that he can justify it with forever, essentially. Yeah,
it's fantastic. Yeah,
and he's kind of a polymath, so he's your medical doctor too, which actually produces some funny dialogue too on the ship. But I just contrast this. The dumb person's idea of a genius thing is a real pet peeve of mine. You spared yourself from watching Ahsoka. That had some of the most egregious version of that recently. Of just Thrawn in that show is supposed to be this uber tactical genius, but their version of genius they have is just he does some total fucking blunder and his guys get their asses kicked, and then he turns to somebody at his office and goes, but you see, I meant for us to get our asses handed to us there.
I gotta watch.
It's like just after every single rake that he steps on, it's just like, I meant to do that though. And there's none of that type of shit with Mordin Solus. It feels like a genuine smart person actually wrote a smart character, which is surprisingly rare.
Yeah. I mean, you get this is really the only Solarian in the games that you get much with. I think he kind of stands in for the entire race for the most part. There's a few others, but this is the only one in your party. This is the only one that you have multiple conversations with, really, and he's a complete standout, and he basically defines that entire race for you because in the way he speaks for the sins of an entire race. It's It's pretty great. It's pretty great stuff. Love him completely.
And once we're done with him, we can go and recruit Archangel, who, surprise, surprise, turns out to be our old buddy Garrus, whose deal has been, look, I don't know how convincing this, reveal is that
it got me pretty good the first time, man. That's pretty great.
I think it did get me the first time. But now I live with it so much that I'm like, well, why does the elusive man not know who this guy is? It doesn't seem like Garrus went to that much trouble to hide his identity. Elusive man knows so much crap that would be impossible for him to really know in any plausible sense.
He might know. He might have withheld that information.
But I can't think of an angle for why that would be beneficial to his means, but whatever. It's a fun sequence when he reveals himself and you get to reunite with your old buddy. And he's become intergalactic Omar Little. He's doing a rob from the rich, give to the poor type of thing. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
But he's also, in doing so, he collected his own dirty dozen, and they've all gotten killed because they had a Judas in their midst. And now he's the only survivor, so he's free to come join you, which is nice. But also, we'll get to his loyalty mission where we have to go track down the Judas and murder them for him. And Garrus is just, talked about Mass Effect 1, like Garrus being a favorite character.
Yeah. Well,
not so much in that game. It's this game retroactively makes him into a favorite because the writing on him and performance is just so lived in and so much more shaded and better performed.
Yeah, this is when Garrus becomes Garrus. This is when this character becomes sort of the legendary Mass Effect companion character that he is. Garrus and Tali, I believe, are the only characters that you have on your squad in all 3 games, if memory serves, right? Yeah.
Well, you can kill them both in this game. So
right. Yes, you can lose them here if you.
And you can even not recruit Garrus in the first game, I believe, but nobody's ever actually done that, I don't
think. He becomes. I would say here is where, like in the first game, his writing is not exceptional. It is in this one. This is where he earns that status and that role, and I think a big part of that is this introduction and how fun it is, and how lived in all their conversation is. You coming back to this character, I don't know, maybe it's just having played the first game, but there is a weight of experience that kind of colors everything with them here, and yeah, it's a person you're glad to see, and yeah, the vocal performance is excellent. This is a great, this is a vocal performance that I mean, I forget the guy's name, but if I hear him in a commercial, I'm just like, yeah, Garrus. It's Garrus there.
I've never noticed him.
He's a very he voice acts quite a bit. A very prolific voice actor.
Yeah, it's just Garrus there's a voice modulation thing going on.
Yeah,
to make him sound Turian, I guess. That masks it just enough for him to slip by me in a Nissan commercial.
It's a slight mod. It's not. Yeah. It's very well designed.
But we talked about this being a scripted experience and Shepard being a scripted character rather than a blank slate. That there's like genuine chemistry between the voice actors now, and that's great. That's like it does. He feels like your buddy.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever done the romance option with Garrus?
No,
it's bad.
It feels wrong.
It does. And he reveals himself to be a very timid lover, as it turns out.
I don't know that he would be that with everybody. I buy him being a little cowed by Shepard specifically.
Yeah, he is, and it's sort of I guess it's sort of a charming awkwardness. I don't know. It makes him, in a way, it improves his status as best friend, even as he is a terrible lover. Because he's like, well, I don't really know how this works with Turians and humans. I'm going to do some research. I'm not ready yet, Shepard. So you get a lot of that.
It's almost the exact flip side of the Tali romance, though, which I think actually works wonderfully. And partly because they have Quarian, we have to live inside this environment suit because we're so fragile. So I have to take precautions is better than I have to do research. But again, that's your buddy from the first game that can grow into a lover, and that version, it totally works for me. But we'll get to that later. We didn't. When we were talking about Morden, we never talked about who does that voice in the.
Yeah, I'm still really hung up on the original actor for Morden. I have to admit.
Well, they changed him from 2 to 3, didn't they?
I don't think so. Pretty sure it's the same guy. I mean, it's the same voice. That's for sure.
The guy who voices Male Shepard does the voice for Morden in 3, I believe.
No way. Wow. I didn't even notice. I'm blown away. Okay.
Yeah. Good job on him. Huh. I say, motion capture by Sean Gunn, voiced by Bill Hader.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hader would be a good guy for that. He's an incredibly creative and unique vocal performer. He does all sorts of great voices. And this is kind of right up his alley. That's pretty cool, man. Yeah.
Or if we have to really ball on a budget and we can't afford any of that, then I guess we put Jay Baruchel in prosthetics.
No. I get it.
I know. This is Morden's the last corner we want to cut. That's
we want
true. That character to work.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking about this and I was like, I don't know, who's that guy from Succession?
Wait.
Kendall.
Oh, the tall guy?
Jeremy Strong. Is that his name?
For Morden?
Yeah, for Morden. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like,
okay.
Physically? I mean,
well, I don't know if he has to be on the set. I think.
I need to. Well, as a voice though, like I think of him like, as being kind of ponderous and hesitant as Kendall. That's the only thing I know him from, really. So
okay, well,
that's the really opposite cadence of what I'm getting from Morden.
I've seen him in other. Like, I don't know. There's a Guy Ritchie film he made that he is, a lot more squirrely, and I don't know. Maybe
okay, that's I need to see squirrely version of him.
Okay, but yeah, I don't know. Bill Hader's a better choice anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, we got Morden and Garrus, and we're off to our next two recruit missions are. Well, I usually go for the prisoner first.
Me too, Jack. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jack is a super biotic kind of psycho who is on a prison ship that you have to go try and retrieve her from. And when you get there, the warden tries to lock you in and, ransom you off because you're a shepherd and you're a celebrity and you have to fight your way out. So you free her and she goes on a biotic rampage she's bald, tattooed, all inked up everywhere. And kind of, one of two of the Bioware staple, murderous rampagers on your crew. But also in this case, a romance option.
Yeah. I won't.
Not always the case with that type of character type.
Yeah. Jack is another home run for me, honestly. I think once again, another great character who's really fun to play with and talk to and has a great opening mission here. Yeah, I love Jack. Again, another one right out the gate. Terrific.
Yeah, great performance. Again, like they're really playing for it. She hangs out at the bottom of the ship in this shadowy alcove where they really like to play around with the cinematography of her like monologues when you go and talk to her. I mean, I say monologues. It's not like it's paragraphs and paragraphs, but they'll do 4 or 5 lines of just her stalking around the shadows. And then, jumping up on a table to sort of shock Shepard real quickly. Just stuff that they didn't do in Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect 1, it was very static, over the shoulder shot of this person, over shoulder shot of that person as they stand still and talk to each other. People don't stand still as much in this game. And she, from what I've seen of the romance of her, I've never done it in my own playthrough, but I watched a couple of YouTube videos. And it seems like it actually works surprisingly well for me.
Yeah,
she becomes a much more well-rounded character than I expect from the opening, where she's just like, "Yeah, I kill everybody and I say fuck."
Well, no, I mean she is very obviously doing a compensation thing throughout. This is she has no real identity or childhood or relationships to lean on and is just projecting absolute strength as much as possible in a way that the more time you spend with her, you're just like, you're trying very hard here. It's pretty well written in that regard. And yeah, she is little girl lost essentially, at her core. She's just scrambling for some sort of semblance of identity or I don't know, structure or anything. It's a very well realized video game character. It's the tropes. It's all the things that you expect from this, but they really go to it. They do it.
The reason why she's all fucked up is because she was kidnapped as a child by Cerberus and raised in a science prison as they did experiments to try and make her more and more powerful with her biotics.
She's a very Guardians of the Galaxy character in a lot of ways.
Yes. She's Nebula in many ways.
And her mission, this prison breakout, is a very Guardians sequence too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I said, the thing about the romance with her that surprised me is, I mean, one, I think it's kind of well structured in that you have to turn her down the first time she propositions you for it to become a real relationship, because of how she operates. Otherwise you're just confirming her deeply held beliefs that anybody who's giving her any time just wants to either use her biotics or use her sexually. And she'll come out, especially in the third game, have come out of her shell some, and the extent to which it's not I cured your mental illness with the power of my dick, is how I expect it to be, but it's much more that the actual suicide run and working with a team, she learns from Shepard and the experience of doing all this to work with other people more. And it's
Nebula.
more about that than it is about romance.
It's absolutely Nebula.
Yeah.
Yeah, predates Nebula's arc in the films, but actually, and then that's a fairly. I don't know. I mean, Nebula almost seems more like this character than her comic book counterpart.
True, but it's a character. It's an arc that works. When done well, and again, good vocal performance to go with it as well.
Yeah, where she lands in the third game is actually fantastic, especially if you romance her. It's quite edifying if she survives this game, of course.
Yeah. I can't bring myself to romance her. Just in this playthrough, I thought about it, but I was like, you've, as you're talking about this, you have killed a ton of people, and you're not actually that cuddly.
So is Shepard. I mean, so have you.
Oh yeah, but not for the reasons that she has, which is that she's trauma, but she's doing it for fun and profit. And deep-seated wounds, sure, but not for the good of humanity.
Well, if you're a damaged Shepard, then it's perfect, though. That's the thing.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It works. It doesn't work for my guy, but it works for a version of Shepard that makes sense. And from there, our last of the initial recruit missions is to go recruit a Krogan warlord named Okir, who we learn is trying to create a perfect Krogan in a vat.
This is his way of combating the genophage. Yes,
right. Overcoming it, saying like, I'm not even trying to cure it. I'm just trying. I'm going to make a perfect Krogan, and we're going to become stronger for it. And in the process of recruitment mission, that scientist guy dies, and you recruit the Vat child instead, which is a giant hulking Krogan that takes on the name Grunt. And he's the other, just kill everybody, barbarian. Crew member for this game, but also kind of perversely lovable.
Yeah, he's a child too.
Yes,
he's a child who's been sort of brain taught to be a perfect murderer, kill a monster, which is Krogan. There's cultural reasons for it.
It seems like this is role for that to that end is made for Dave Bautista. Specifically, but
I mean, the late Michael Clark Duncan is a perfect one for me, but he's late, so that's
quite late.
But I mean,
Batista you could put any wrestler could be in there.
I don't know. Are we getting two Guardians then? If we've got Jack and Dave Bautista in the same thing, because I want both of them in there.
Well, I guess it depends who is playing Jack is a question.
Yeah. Well, we never really figured that out. I don't know.
I say Emmy Rossum.
You think? It's different for her, but I don't know. It's a good character. A good actress can do it if they can physically pull it off, and Emmy Rossum probably can. So I'm down with that. Let's see.
I mean, I could give Kristen Stewart a shot at it. Maybe it would be a stretch, but
no, I like that actually. I like that very much. I think she'd get into it. That's cool. I don't know. She's probably not in a position in her career where she'll shave her head to play fifth lead on a sci-fi show.
I don't know. I think somewhat like Pattinson, they're like sitting on Twilight money and not doing things just for, the clout necessarily. I think they got, they caught the brass ring early and now are doing things to try and get themselves interested, and shaving her head and putting on a bunch of tattoos seems like it might be actually a thing that would.
I like that though. I think she has a good raw nerve quality if she wants it, and that's essential for Jack. Yeah, I do like that, and she's smarter too. She seems like a smart actress, and I think that is useful for Jack. That to have an intelligence to her. I like that very much, actually. That'd be cool.
Okay, we got one.
Yeah. Okay.
Jack's also a character in I think a TV show that could be really major or not so much. Could be anywhere from like third lead to ninth lead on that show.
I would use her more on TV. I think this is a good character, a good cinematic character. It would not require CGI to realize, which is probably beneficial to the show if we care about that. But I would write more for this character in adaptation.
I think you do that. I mean, would you choose her as a romance option for if there's a male shepherd?
No, probably not for this. I mean, maybe honestly, like if it was structured in such a way where Liara is the ultimate relationship, I think a sideline romance with Jack that is kind of a fling that is beneficial for everyone emotionally might be really good. Then you can kind of maintain that cool arc from the third game. I like that maybe.
But you don't need the romance for that arc in the third game necessarily.
You don't.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's why it comes across as less, sex
magic
fantasy.
dick. Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I think that the only hard part out of that is coming up with a single coherent characterization for Shepard that has a relationship with both Liara and with Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are different routes you could take where both these make sense and both of them are emotionally affecting. I don't know if that's the same Shepard in both those things.
True enough. And I want the Liara one first. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, we'll stick with
Liara. Actually, Miranda's not a bad romance option.
As a fling.
Yeah, as a fling for the series, even. Yeah, maybe. And I like what that does with the Jack, because Miranda and Jack hate each other. That's a big part of the game, and it's good.
Yeah, it's good. Yes. Yeah, that's the other thing we're getting a lot more here than in the first game is actually just interactions between the squad that are not, necessarily. I mean, Shepard's always going to be in the scene eventually, and they're always going to look to you to resolve it in some fashion. But there's just a lot more conversation between party members, which then becomes a sort of staple of Bioware stuff that is a big part of this appeal. So that's it. We talked about all the initial recruitments, except
we didn't really get into Grunt. I don't know. He's not a home run like the others we were talking about. He's all right. He's a Krogan. They're fun.
We'll get into him with his loyalty mission.
Yeah, sure.
There's also the DLC characters, though, which is Zaid Masani, who I guess is the third just shoot everybody and kill everything evil party member, because he's a grizzled old mercenary. And there's Kasumi Goto, who is a master thief. She's just kind of I guess sort of Sarah in Dragon Age Inquisition fits that
I guess
to a degree.
Kasumi's, I feel, under really written and underrealized. I think, aside from her recruitment mission, such as it is, would not even recruitment,
Zaid
really.
Zaid and Kasumi don't have recruitment missions.
Yeah, loyalty missions.
Skipped over them. You just meet them somewhere and they agree to come with you. But yes, they have loyalty missions. And Kasumi's loyalty mission is really involved and actually, like gameplay wise, pretty great from what I recall. It's
terrific, actually. But it's kind of the only thing Kasumi does. I mean, she's present for however long you need her, but other than that mission, she doesn't really have much role in this, and is not the deepest character. Has some neat gameplay mechanics when you use her in combat. I enjoy that, and her loyalty mission is excellent. It's one of the cooler ones in the game. It is a Ocean's 11 style heist, kind of, and yes. And it's delightful. Has a really fun villain, a fun environment, different gameplay challenges. It's a great little thing to do.
Yeah. We'll have to do a whole episode about loyalty missions.
Oh yeah,
so
totally,
many of them,
totally.
And they're so in depth. And we're getting here to an hour and a half. You mentioned environments. That's something that we probably should have mentioned up at the top. That is just something light years ahead of the first game. Is just every single level is a unique, really well rendered environment with a lot of detail,
cleverly designed.
Well designed and thoughtfully designed in every single mission, every single side mission, every single loyalty mission. And none of the modular buildings or the, sort of generic planets of the first game. Everything is just poured over a lot more here. And that contributes to the atmosphere as much as different lighting and different sound design too.
It's very good. Okay. But yeah, like you said, we're over 90 minutes at this point, and there's so much more to go. Is this a natural landing spot for our first conversation on Mass Effect 2? I think it is.
Yes, because once you complete those 4 recruitment missions, then the Elusive Man comes on the horn and tells you it's time. The collectors are in the process of attacking a new human colony, and that becomes our next story mission, is to go intervene there.
Horizon.
So that's where we'll start next time. We'll pick up on Horizon.
All right. Thank you for listening, and and your support. We are, if you enjoy the show, please rate and review on the app of your choice. It benefits us in terms of its visibility. So I am led to believe, and here we are. We're doing a lot of Bioware talk. If you enjoy that, more to come. So thank you for listening this far.
And we need those ratings and reviews because we're 3 years into this game of chicken. John and I have been playing to see which one of us is going to crack and actually put something on social media to promote this. And it doesn't seem like either of us is going to engage with social media ever.
I've done it a few times. I've put a Facebook thing that's hey, there's this Big Trouble in Little China episode. It's a pretty good one, and that's about the extent of it. It's happened.
Yeah, it's all I can bring myself to do.
A handful of times.
Just even that. I can't do it. So anyway, if you just hit the rating buttons, it really will it will save us a lot of agita.
It would be awesome. Thank you. And thank you for listening once again. Back next time with more Mass Effect 2.
So much more.
So much.